Welcome back to this week's edition of the Rock and Roll Ghost Podcast. This week we have the members of the Loyal Seas, which you may know from other bands, Tanya Donelly and Brian Sullivan. Tanya was in Throwing Muses, Belly, Breeders, solo career. Brian does Dylan in the movies, and now they've joined up to make Strange Mornings in the Garden is their debut album. Welcome to the show, guys. Hope you're doing well on this great Memorial Day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. So you guys met back in the 90s. You met at the studio at Fort Apache, was that correct? Or did you meet somewhere else?
That's where we met. Yeah.
And that place is kind of infamous. I remember reading a book about Uncle Tupelo Wilco when they said they drove there and they were scared out of their minds back when they recorded their one album at Fort Apache. Has the area changed at all since then?
Oh, they must have been, in the very first one, which did actually, my husband was mugged outside of that studio.
Oh, fantastic.
Multiple people who had equipment taken from outside of that studio too. No, it later on ended up sort of in North Cambridge, and it's a different area. Still, there were a couple of issues in there too, but but for the most part, no, it was.
But it is known for being kind of what the original studio was known for being, obviously a rough place to do this in.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's always fun to try to record art and then get ripped off.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Literally.
But so you guys met them, but you didn't collaborate until you started doing those working on those covers compilations. You did a cover of the Smiths, Shoplifters of the World Unite, and then you did a cover of the Cure's Love Cats for two different albums. How did you guys come together to actually, do those?
We actually, the first thing that we worked on together was a song on Dylan in the Movies record, a song called August Moon. Yeah, August Moon and another song called Better Days. And that was the first one too, right?
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that came after.
No, all good, no worries. But yeah, that's I recorded that one, and I was working with my friend Brian Brown, who was an engineer at Fort Apache, and we were listening back to it, and he said he was actually the one that really, of course I had it in the back of my mind, but he was like, we should have Tanya sing on this. I said, okay.
Oh.
and then I asked her, and she said yes, and then that sort of started off, and the rest is history.
Yeah. For those two covers though, how were you assigned those? Were you able to pick those? I mean, how did that come about? What or if you picked them, what was it about each that spoke to you that you felt you could do a good cover on?
Joe approached us kind of as a unit to do what was the first one? I'm so sorry, my chronology.
First one was Love Cats.
Love Cats, yeah. And that was, at that point, it was just, we're doing this tribute album and pick a song, and we immediately, immediately jumped on that one. So it's like, so Joe would basically send out a list to everybody saying, pick one, and we snagged that one early.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because you don't want like everybody, wanting to get the same song, because then you're like, well, everybody can't do one version of the song.
Right.
Well, and I think also when you're doing like a comp album like that, it's not. That does happen to be one of my top 5 favorites of theirs, but sometimes it's not your favorite song. It's just the one that you're like, this one makes sense for me.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. So.
And with the Smiths, were you guys both just big fans, early on?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were one of my first obsessive favorites.
That's cool.
That-
Yeah, both
yeah.
the Smiths and the Cure still
Yeah.
hold up for me. But
Right, both of those bands, yeah, just,
yeah, but I mean, I'm from that era, so
yeah,
I admit I'm biased.
yeah.
And then you kind of started working on. You did the split single, which has so far my favorite song from the album is "Strange Mornings in the Garden," the title track. When did you kind of come up with the idea to join forces for something else? You know, that's not, you know, something that you're covering and something that's not with Brian for Dylan in the movies. When did that idea happen?
I think I was in pursuit of it first, probably. You know, we would have dinner parties at my house and he would be in the other room playing playing my piano, and I remember with Last of the Great Machines, I heard him playing and I walked in and I was just like, I want that. Can I have that?
Yeah.
Can that be for me? And so, you know, that it just sort of came about first, you know, I've said this before, but I think Brian and I just live in the same musical space. You know, everything that he does just resonates so strongly with me, musically and his lyrics. And so when I'm, you know, writing words to something that he's written, it just like, there's an ease to it. Not easy is the wrong word. It just taps something that, you know.
You have a connection to it.
Yes.
That maybe you wouldn't have with somebody else.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the ability to write a lot. I think for all of the, I wrote the music for all of the songs on this record.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because the ability to write a piece of music and send it to Tanya, knowing that I'm going to get something extraordinary back every time, and every time I did, that was like one of my favorite parts of this project is, you know, I've said this before, it was like, you know, Christmas morning, you just sort of like, you're just kind of waiting for it to come back and be like, yay.
And on the other side of that coin, I'm always so excited when I get a piece of music from him. And you know, it's very like, it's rare for me. I mean, I love collaborating, but you know, he'll send me just a piece of music and I get teary.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something, you know, it's his music speaks to me.
That's interesting.
Speaks to me, Brian.
You've
And
written a lot of,
Speaks to me.
You've written a lot of your own, you know, you've written a lot of your own music, Tanya, and it's interesting that you had no problem kind of, you know, taking a back seat, I guess, in terms of the music. Obviously, I'm sure you suggested changes and things like that, but
yeah, we
was
both.
that easy? Was that easy to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're very close.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and we have a lot of history behind us, and we're really comfortable telling each other how we feel about something.
Yeah. I would imagine that helps, having known each other so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the ego, there's no ego in this project for us.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
Well, that's cool.
It didn't exist. Which was
nowadays the music industry is so weird. It's like, you know, I mean, I have to imagine from today, based on when both of you began, especially you, Tanya, because you really went through the major label thing, you know, a few different times.
Yeah.
You know, in different incarnations, and you saw the MTV days and all that stuff, that making music today is all about what's personal and what means the most to you instead of what might sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's just the freedom around that is not to be underappreciated for a second. I mean, every one that I work with and every song that I work on is because I love that person. I love the song, there's just, it's such a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that some of that too is just, you don't have to have gone through what I went through and come out the other side of it. I feel like just the DIY as a pretty accepted template right now.
Yeah.
That's the case for a lot of artists, which is, I hope they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how you start. Throwing Muses, started, I'm sure, very DIY. So it's like you're come full circle,
Right.
in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that
Like we used to hand paint all of our EP covers ourselves when we were doing
yeah.
our own. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bunch of those the Belly EPs too, and I not to sidetrack, but and nothing against Brian. I love Dylan in the movies, Brian. Don't get me wrong.
Oh no, please sidetrack.
But yeah, Tanya has been a favorite of mine for so very long, and
Yeah.
So this is a special honor to be able to talk to you, Tanya. I just wanted to say,
Thanks, Brett.
yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, and I just so much of that music. I mean, I probably listened to the collab you did with Kim for This Mortal Coil an awful lot, and I think that's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard.
Oh, that's also back to what I was saying before, an example of a song that makes sense for our voices and for that one just kind of slotted in for us. Yeah, I love that too. That was also a lovely experience recording that. So
yeah, because I mean, just for me, you're one of the defining people of that kind of era.
Holy moly! Thanks.
Yeah. So getting back to the album, how long did it actually take were you kind of working on it before you got to the studio to have it all set up so you wouldn't spend too much time in the studio, or did you work?
It took about 25 years.
What's that?
It took about 25 years.
Well, that's a long time for an album.
Felt like it, no.
We keep saying, here's one thing that just before, I just want to preface with, we keep saying that, and I do think this is true, that lockdown gave us sort of the concentrated time to be able to really dig in and finish the writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder if it didn't delay it a little bit. I was saying, I was thinking about this the other day, that we might actually, you might have been able to come here like a couple of years earlier than, because we had decided that we were going to do this.
Right. We decided we were going to do it literally. I was there in January and we finished Strange Mornings in the Garden and Last of the Great Machines in the studio together. And that's when I ran into Joe from American Laundromat at a Juliana Hatfield show. And he said, "What are you doing in town?" I said, "I'm working with T on this, some new songs." He said, "I'd love to hear them." Next thing you know, we talked to him and he's all psyched about the project and wants to help, put it out. And so we were like, all right, cool, we're going to do it. And then the pandemic hit right then. So we were dedicated to it right before lockdown happened. So I think for me, it definitely gave me a direction. It's okay, well, I have a plan for the foreseeable future. Let's lock down and make the music, So it was definitely a silver lining in an otherwise pretty dark period of our lives.
I think we did really well under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Sort of sharing files and Zooming and had a weekly meeting, which I've never done before, which was like so. I mean, it was just incredibly helpful. First of all, we got a lot of chatting out of the way, but then
Yeah.
it just was having something very structured and having homework for that week.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, we have
was,
assignments for each other.
yeah, we gave each other assignments. And it was really constructive and fun, and I've never done anything like that. So it was great, and it really was just something in the dark days. It was
Yeah, I can imagine that helped a lot.
it was like a shot of vitamin D.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. And yeah, it just gave purpose. You know, it's just like, all right, we got this, we have this to focus on, and we're gonna be locked inside for a while. Might as well, you know, make good use of our time.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you certainly got more accomplished than I did during that time. Although, actually, honestly, the show started because of the pandemic. So,
I was
cool.
just going to ask you that because yeah, that's the case.
I've been doing this sort of thing for you. I started writing about music online in the 2000s. I finally got the sense that I could finally write. I had a way to write, and I started working from there, and I wrote about food and everything. And then I stopped for a while, and then I was like, well, everybody's doing this Zoom thing. I mean, let's see what I can do with it. And
yeah.
It actually really was, cool. Now that I think about it, it was the thing that kind of saved my sanity.
Yeah.
Especially doing something like that, because it's twofold. It's something very social, and it's something very,
Yeah, I think it was mostly just being able to talk to people more.
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was pretty much stuck at home with family, and it's like,
right.
After a while you get tired of talking to them. It's like, okay, I'm going out of my mind. I need to talk to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, it just the repetition of conversations.
Yes. Yeah, and you can only watch so much, Netflix and everything too. We're tired of everything on TV.
Right.
So, now that the album's out and everything, do you guys have any plans to tour? I know you're doing a show in Boston, or you did a show in Boston.
We're doing 2 shows at the end of June. On June 25th, we're doing a matinee and evening show at the Burren. We're playing a show at City Winery in Boston as well on August 6th. And then we're playing with Buffalo Tom Bowery Ballroom in New York.
Oh, I didn't realize they were still together. Did they reunite?
They do. They reunite for shows, and they're actually in the process of recording another album as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a throwback. If anybody doesn't know who Buffalo Tom is, just do a YouTube search for Soda Jerk.
Oh yeah.
And they're new. I have to say, like, their albums of the past decade are absolutely beautiful.
I'll have to catch up to them then. Sometimes if you don't have stuff coming at you in some way,
absolutely.
Find out.
Yeah.
Any plans past that, and for these shows, is it just you and Brian, or Brian and?
No, we have a band put together. It is Scott Janovitz, brother of Bill Janovitz from Buffalo Tom. Scott Janovitz on keys and some guitar, probably. Melissa Gibbs on keys, and both of them on vocals as well. Dean Fisher, my husband, on bass. Matthias Bossi on drums. Who am I forgetting?
And Russell.
And Russell Jadnowski
on guitar.
On guitar, who Russell plays with me all the time. He and I just put out actually 2 songs recently too on my Bandcamp page.
Okay.
He's been, and actually, speaking of someone that I worked with nonstop during lockdown, I did a fundraising cover series on my Bandcamp, and he was very much a part of that, every single step of that. So.
That's awesome. Well, my other question got lost by asking a second question there, but do you have plans to tour more of the States or anywhere else after those initial shows?
Not right now. Waiting to see, what the fall brings, in all ways.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have, personally, I would love to have a second wind in the fall. So I would hope so that we could do more in the fall. I'm waiting to see. I think everybody's sort of waiting to see what
Yeah.
COVID
'Cause
brings.
I know here in Chicago we're at very high again, but nobody seems to be doing anything.
No, no one seems to be doing about it, but it
Yeah.
does impact shows.
Yeah.
It seems to impact shows like more than any other area right now. There are few bands pulled out of Boston Calling this past weekend because they were sick, there was exposure or sickness. So you have something, the Strokes had to pull out of Boston Calling and they were headlining their night. And that's a big loss. And it's, I just feel like erring not on the side of caution. I'm kind of over that, but just being smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian, so describe kind of like, if you could, because I as much as I know your music, I don't know much about you. What were your beginnings like as a musician? I mean, what age did you feel like this is something you could do or you wanted to do?
I would say early on, 9 or 10, I started playing the drums in the school band.
Okay. I did that too. Yeah. Yeah. We heard Christopher Cross's big hit song.
Oh, there you go. Sailing.
That's again. What about what did you say about?
Oh, he and I were both in school bands, and the first song I learned with my school band was that big Christopher Cross song from E10.
Oh, right.
I can't remember the title of it.
That's where my husband started in school band. Also, same.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Narciso too.
Yeah.
Snare, both of them.
Snare. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they start you on. You want full drums, but they give you one.
Exactly. You give me one. And it's, can you handle it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that just progressed. And then, this is like early 80s where, it really kind of every, if you look at the charts of like 1980, 82, summer of 1982, that's when I think my musical ear just went boop, and it just opened up. And, there's so many incredible songs that just happened to come at that time. The Go-Go's I always go back to. Beauty and the Beat was the first record I ever got, and just sat down and became obsessed with that and learned how to play drums playing to that record. And learned how to play guitar. Kind of came later because I'm a lefty.
Yeah.
My brother was an incredible guitar player, but he was a righty, so I would go, I'd sneak in when he left and come back and be like, stop playing my guitar upside down. So I stuck with the drums, and and then that just progressed to songwriting in my teenage years, poetry that sort of turned into songwriting in verse, and then kind of got in some bands around that time. And then it wasn't until probably my early 20s that I really kind of decided to really dive deeper into songwriting. And at the Fort, you were just surrounded, everyone was a musician, and and everyone wanted to get into engineering, so you'd sort of be guinea pigs for people that wanted to start their studios up. And so that was sort of kind of the progression there, and that's where Dylan and the Movies kind of came out of that period, that early to mid 20s.
Okay, cool. No, very cool.
Yeah.
Who were your influences early on? I mean, obviously you mentioned the Go-Go's for drums, but
grew up with a lot of Irish music in my family. My mother was from Ireland, so we had a lot of Sound of Erin happening on the weekends, and she was friends with the people that worked at that radio program. So a lot of times bands would come to town, they'd end up in our living room playing sessions late into the night. So a lot of Irish music, Celtic. That's kind of, I think, where my sadness, melancholy thing comes from. A lot of minor chords. But yeah, that and you know, the Beatles. Oh God, a lot of John Denver. A lot of Fleetwood Mac, Wings, Silly Love Songs is probably one of my first musical memories. That's still to this day one of my favorite songs. So yeah, just and then getting into my, you know, then growing up, like you said, like the Smiths and the Cure and REM, throwing Muses, Pixies, you know, getting into all to that genre of music.
Yeah.
That really kind of changed my musical life as well. So
I hear you. No, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I think your early influences make a lot of sense for your music, frankly. And Tanya, I guess for you too, what were some of the artists that inspired you when you were first picking up, you know, an instrument or singing or
Well, actually, there are going to be several repeats here. The Beatles are directly responsible for me playing guitar.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Kristen and I both together. We started playing from a Beatles songbook first.
Yeah.
She quickly started writing from there. But yeah, so Beatles are primary source. And then after that, I started to fall in love. I mean, I grew up in a house with two avid music lovers. So I grew up with all kinds of music in the house, and my dad it has an exhaustive encyclopedia, you know, just a huge music lover. And so it was a lot of Dylan and Joni Mitchell and the Stones, Velvet Underground, Beatles, just Melanie.
Yeah, Brand New Key.
Yeah. You know, Nick Drake. Neil Young.
You grew up in a household with Nick Drake? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Just stuff, my father is, to this day, he'll call me and say, have you heard this? And I'll look it up and I'm like, where would I still absorbing all of it and actively looking for new music that he loves.
So you're saying your dad is hipper than you are?
1,000%.
He's a very hip man for sure.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, and then the stuff that I discovered on my own was a lot of repeats. Beauty and the Beat was my first album I bought with my own money.
That's cool.
my babysitting money. And I loved Echo and the Bunnymen. I loved the Smiths, The Cure, Susie. I loved Kate Bush with a passion. And then Replacements I loved very much.
That was one of my first intro to what became known as alternative was the Replacements. And there was a point in high school where I was just getting into the Stones really hard, and then it became the Replacements at the same time. And that's kind of when that led into Pixies and Jane's Addiction. And I was not a hip kid in high school. I was listening to a lot of stuff, but I wasn't into Metallica like all my stoner friends. I was into the stuff that everybody knew about, and I was also into stuff that was non-hip. I was a big Huey Lewis and the News fan. So, it took me a while to kind of get into the spirit of my generation.
But it's hip to be square.
Yeah. No, that's me. I was wearing ties in high school.
Right.
My ex-wife,
Oh, I love
my
that.
ex-wife always said she would definitely not take a second notice of on me. So yeah, it's so much of that music from that time, and that's what the great thing of, especially about modern days, is that even though I know, Tanya, that and it's still there on Spotify, I looked, that you're against the model, but still the ability, YouTube, whatever, iTunes, Bandcamp, the ability to go back and find everything now, pretty much. There's almost nothing that's not out there in some shape or form, is pretty amazing. And at one point that seems daunting, I think,
Yeah.
to discover anything. You have to discover things by accident almost now, I think.
Right. There's something, yeah, I feel like the streaming as a concept and as a platform is a very elegant and wonderful tool. Potentially, it's really just, I've said it all, but my kids, just my kids have an incredible bandwidth of musical taste and knowledge from streaming platforms. They don't use Spotify, but it's an incredible education. And I do sort of like that, like, the fluidity of one thing leading to another, because that's not a linear path. There's so many tributaries that branch off from everything that just the continuum of music, how everything's connected, and it's such a potentially beautiful way to find music.
Yeah. Well, I definitely like the Bandcamp model a lot, because I think it helps everybody get into get a little bit more personally involved with the artist, because you can pay the base price or you can pay more, whatever, and there's all these options. And I'm sorry, Tanya, your dog in the background is hilarious.
I know. She's
sorry, I just got a glimpse and I just started cracking up.
How is that possibly comfortable too?
That's better now.
Now she's
right there. Yeah.
She heard us.
Yeah, the Bandcamp model is a lot of fun, because it gives you a chance to interact in a way differently, and it's helping the artist more. I mean, you could talk to more about your experience, I guess, with it.
Yeah, I love Bandcamp. I think it's perfect. Frankly, it's it's fair, it's transparent. I do love the fact that it's connects. I love getting messages from people directly and directly being able to respond to that. That's such a great way to deliver music and to communicate with people, and I just can't say enough. I love it.
Would you say you've made more money from Bandcamp than you did from the major labels?
That is probably very accurate.
Isn't that funny, considering how successful Belly was?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I could talk about.
Yeah, well, that's the other
item, but
honestly, the streaming and the record companies are. Somebody hit me to the idea that which I didn't know, that the labels are directly involved with the streamers in terms of being, tied together. And because I always thought, why wouldn't the labels want streamers to pay more? Because it doesn't matter, because they've got involvement in the streamers, and that's how they make their money. So they don't care if the artist makes money.
No, exactly.
Without getting too far,
right.
But
no, and we found that out. Belly found that out. Just in several years ago, we tried to pull our stuff off.
Yeah.
Spotify, and quickly discovered that we could not.
Yeah. No, I remember. Tanya's definitely talked about that a lot in the past. So if you want to, Google that, and you'll definitely be able to find all that information out there. I don't want to rehash it, but
Yeah,
Well-
we're in the process of reclaiming catalog, and so I think if we're successful in that, that we will then have control over all of it. So
Well, see, that's great, and I apologize, Brian, for not shifting.
Oh no, this is very important.
But no, Tanya, that was one of the things I was going to ask is about getting any of your catalog, that you personally, created, that you're a part of with someone else back. Because
yeah,
especially with Belly, there's all those maxi singles, and I've got a few of them, but they're impossible to find nowadays. And there's some songs on there that I think, would have been great on an album. They were so good.
Yeah, we have moments where we will look back and be like, why didn't we put that on?
Yeah. Well, you can only put so many.
Yeah, true.
It was a rigid format. You can only put so many songs in an album. Nobody,
Right.
that was just the way things were. You had, I'm sure, battles between you and maybe along with management and labels were legendary about how you wanted your image and all that to be.
Yeah, and we were also, just as a band, we were always vinyl focused. Always, we were often, I shouldn't say always, often thinking about that we wanted the vinyl to match the CD if we possibly could, and so that's even a more restricted form in terms of how quality and how many songs can fit on the side of a piece of vinyl, so that was always something that we also kept in mind.
Because that was definitely a period of time where vinyl was near its lowest, and now it's become the one thing that sells.
Yep. Yeah.
How interesting is that to both of you, that vinyl has become a thing?
I love it.
I love it too, but having been on 4AD throughout all of those low ebb years, 4AD always prioritized vinyl. There was always vinyl coming. That it was always a valued format for that label, and so it was always part of my. There wasn't a time when it wasn't part of the design conversation and the song. Picking songs, that was always sort of a conversation for me.
Yeah, 4AD is, for right now, if anybody doesn't know anything about 4AD, do a deep dive into their just their album covers alone, I think, are worth
beautiful.
Yeah,
no, I agree. Absolutely.
They put out some amazing music.
23 Envelope. Yeah, that was Chris Big and Vaughn Oliver. Amazing work. Beautiful stuff.
Well, like I said, I didn't want to take up too much of your time today. Is there anything I'm kind of forgetting that we should discuss that you want to get out there?
I don't know. What do you think, Brad?
I think we covered a lot.
I think
yeah. Get the record, everyone. Anyone that's listening to this, get the record.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I'll have the links to band camps, your individual band camps, the Loyal Seas band, any social media and all that stuff. I'll have that with the story, or not the story, the video. And it'll also be available on audio for audio podcasting. But Brian, Tanya, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and just let you guys know, you're our 100th episode.
Oh.
Yeah, so you fell into place perfectly to be the 100th episode.
Oh, that's
So
and I just want to also thank you again for your kindness and patience around the.
Oh, no problem. No, this was when this happened, and again, Brian, I'm sorry. I have to say that to be able to speak to you, Tanya, having enjoyed your music so much as early on, I didn't think that would ever happen. Anytime I talk to anybody I've had years of liking of, whether it be an actor or a director, musician, whatever, the fact that it can actually can happen, I'm just a fan, no matter what.
Oh, thank you.
So-
I am also just like, I'm gonna start, I was looking at your incredible list of, it's just such a great podcast.
I
also
appreciate
love how
that.
open it is to, just inclusive of so many things. It's
Well,
so,
admittedly, I have to be, because if I send out 200 requests in a month, I get maybe, enough for a month.
right.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you take people that you don't know anything about, and you roll the dice, see if it works, and hope for the best. And sometimes,
Isn't that everything?
yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you just kind of move on. But yeah, I've had some really good guests, and I keep hoping to talk to other great people like you guys. So
Oh,
thank you very much again. Good luck with the album.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you. And you guys have a great rest of your day, okay?
You
All right.
too.
Thanks, you
All right,
too.
bye.
Bye.
See ya. Take care.
You too.